Easier on you here this afternoon and talk to you about a topic that, as you heard in my introduction, is very near and dear to my heart, but also very applicable to what we're all doing here. And that is, of course, the power of story. And many of you know, but some of you don't, since half of you here are brand new first-time attendees, but this, through storytelling, is actually how I came to Orenda. Co-founder Bob Hall was taking a storytelling class at one of the local community colleges, recognizing how important story is in our business. So he decided to take a class, and lo and behold, I happened to be one of the guest lecturers. In my day job, I was a beer cart girl at the golf course. But I went in as a guest lecturer, you know, master's degree, cooking hot dogs, and it worked for me, okay? And afterwards, this very tall man who kind of sat in the corner with this look on his face the whole time. At first I thought he hated me, and then I realized his wheels were turning, right? He came up to me and said, "Hey, can I get your information? Da-da-da, what do you do?" Beer cart girl. And I don't know if it was my profession that I was currently in that made him go, "We need her." Or if it was the fact that they had just lost their director of marketing to New Jersey. Okay, loser to New Jersey in the love of her life, and it just happened that I was open to other professions. And so we came together, and I found myself here. But my passion for story, as you all know, didn't stop. In fact, it has grown. And see, it really started back when I was in 5th grade in Mrs. Sprain's class. And I'm sure you all remember, I grew up in Minnesota, right? It was coming to April, we were seeing the sun for the first time in like 6 months, and so she had to do something to get our attention. So we were all going to do storytelling. And it was one of those moments. I was just fortunate enough to have it happen when I was in 5th grade, where I knew, wow, this is something I can do. And so then I went on through middle school storytelling at my church, telling different stories about clowns and God and all these different things. And then in high school, I was competitively telling fairy tales, but I never really thought that there was any real life application, you know, for storytelling, until my senior year of high school. I was in physics class. Now I gotta tell you something. I loved physics class. Unexpected, right? It's not because I liked physics. It was because I loved Mr. Suresik. I tell you, I sat in the front row to watch him right on the chalkboard. It was amazing every time. Physics had never looked so wonderful to me. And it was at the very end of our senior year physics class, and we had to write a paper, a 5-page paper about our favorite physics topic. Well, I couldn't write about Mr. Suresik's derriere, so I had to think of something else. I decided to write about gravity. It worked, physics, gravity, and it had to be 5 pages. Now 5 pages when you're 17 years old is like a lifetime. So I did everything I could to come up with 5 pages of information about physics, and I came up with 4. At the end of it all, it was the night before it was due, and I had 4 pages. Things go up, they come back down. What more did you say? So I was sitting there staring at my computer. I wanted to impress Mr. Suresik. I didn't know what to do. And then the thought came to me. Well, storytelling works in competition. Maybe I could try it here. So I wrote half a page about my love of roller coasters. About every summer we wait for Valley Fair to open so we can be the first ones on Wild Thing. The roller coaster that goes up and comes back down so steep that it actually curls back in. And that feeling in your stomach as it drops, my friends, that's gravity. So I plot that half of the page at the beginning, and then at the end I went back to that story. So the next time I'm sitting in the chair at Wild Thing, I feel the heavy bars come over my shoulders, and I start the long climb up to the top. Here's the actual end of this is the actual end of the paper. Before we start our descent, I will take a moment, look above, and see Newton holding his apple and thank him. 5 pages! And I was set. I printed it out. I thought, oh man, let this trick him, let him think I'm brilliant. I handed it in. A few days later, I got it back, A. And in the notes, it said, brilliant application of theory to real-life situations. So I thought, if that works in Mr. Suresik's physics class, where else could this work? So I did it in my freshman year of college composition class, in my sophomore year religion class. Every single paper I had, the first part was a story, the last part was a story, and in between was all of the theory, and every single time, brilliant application of theory to real-life situations. It was perfect. Well, I didn't stop there. I've been testing this theory on all of you. So let's see if you passed. How many of you were here at the Ritz-Carlton in January last year? Okay. How many of you remember I did a presentation? You remember I did a presentation? Okay, good. How many of you remember there being a flip chart here and me doing a bunch of math? You remember that I did it. Do you remember what it was? No. That's okay. You're answering correctly. No, I don't even remember what it was. Yes, I do. It was the importance of duplication. But how many of you remember a story about Michael finding a pearl in an oyster? How many of you remember a story about an eagle? And carrots and peas. Now, see, now you're getting into it. How many of you remember the story about my grandmother's knitting from a Tuesday conference call and how that was her hobby? Yes, how many of you remember the story about Sarah, our employee, who turned her hobby of art into a business? That is what you remember. You remember the stories. And they illustrate all of the technical stuff in between. Now, fortunately, I'm not the only one who thinks this way. There's a book out there, A Whole New Mind. Have any of you read it? I've only read one chapter. It's this new book about how right-brainers are going to take over the world, but they actually discuss in there, yes, some of you are cheering, some of you are like, I will make a list to stop that. It's okay, not Miss Baker. She's like, but one of the things they say in that book is that it's no longer just your ability to recite a list of benefits of your product, of your service, of whatever it might be, because someone can always come back with an argument, right? Sales, which is something that we all do here, sales, sure, however you want to look at it, is now dependent on your ability to fashion a compelling narrative. Now, they're using this a lot in the healthcare field, in hospitals with patient relations, in Storytelling, Self and Society, a journal that has published all about storytelling. They actually have an article in there about a research study that was done about patients who were going into the morning for angioplasty. And they had them sit down and tell different snippets of their life story or difficult obstacles that they had overcome. And what they were expecting to find is, number one, there would be reduced stress, which there was over the control group. Number two, that the outcomes would be better, which it was over the control group. But the third thing that happened that was completely unexpected is that the reviews from the people that were telling the stories were overwhelmingly higher for the hospital than in the control group. People process, people connect, people learn all through stories. And you do it all the time, even if it's not something that's just a formal thing that you're doing. But what I'm going to encourage you here to do this afternoon is make it a conscious decision to start incorporating story, even more than you already are, into the business that you have right now. Is that a fair challenge to pose to you? So what I'm going to do is give you a few points on how you can do this, and each one, of course, you're going to get a story.